Now we're going to discuss a couple of different types of non-communicable diseases, one of which we're going to focus on is a big one that you've heard about. I know you must have heard about is cancer. Cancer is a disease characterized by a mass of abnormally growing cells that spread and cause illness. So you can have two different types of tumors, which is a mass of cells that are growing. It could be benign, which is the best case scenario. If you find out that you have a tumor, it's always going to be nerve wracking. But the number one thing you want to hear is that it is benign, which means that it's not invading or spreading into the nearby tissue. It means it's just contained and it's staying where it is. Sometimes those tumors can just be left alone. Other times you can just go in and remove them, and it's not really much of an issue. Other times, if you hear it's malignant tumor, that is not good. That means it is invading the nearby tissues and it is starting to metastasize, which means it is starting to spread and make more copies of themselves. So you can see right over here in this example, here are normal cells, and these are the cancerous cells. And look how different they look compared to everything else. And it may have started with a couple, and then it starts to spread and make more of themselves, making more of their mutated, messed up copies, just like all cells do. But they may have like an order inside of them, which is basically almost like a virus to like spread more rapidly and to spread more. And right here, this is the basement membrane. These are other types of cells. And notice how this type of malignant tumor here has broken in and is now starting to spread throughout there. It's very important, especially as you get older. The older you get, the more likely you are to have cancerous cells inside of your body. And if you can spot it at a very young age or a very early stage of it, your chances of surviving it go up so much more significantly higher. So that's why there are certain types of cancers that you hear about that are like much more easily preventable. Lung cancer is more easily preventable than other ones. But just getting it checked early on is great. So some lifestyle choices that people can make that affect the risk of getting cancer. The biggest one I can think of would definitely be smoking. If you never start smoking or you're never putting any kind of particulates or things inside of your lungs, if you're not in an area where there's very little air pollution, you're less likely to develop lung cancer because your lungs are going to stay clean. The only thing that should be going inside of your lungs are clean, fresh oxygen, right? And the other gases in the atmosphere. So that's one of the best ones. Your diet can be a part of it too. How about for skin cancer? For skin cancer, I'm sure you've heard about that. Even if you're the type of person where, oh, I don't get sunburn, Mr. J. I only get a nice tan, so I don't worry about putting on sunscreen. The problem with that is you might be right, but you can still develop skin cancer by being out in the sun, exposed to the sun. So you should I would be worried about putting on sunscreen and definitely put it on, not just because it's annoying with the sunburn, but that long-term exposure to the sun, direct contact with that, does increase your chances every single time of gaining skin cancer. So skin cancer is caused by the ultraviolet UV light that damages genes. Lung cancer begins in the lungs and then they can spread to other organs. Then there's breast cancer. Risk factors are included your genetics, your age, lifestyle choices. Now there is and then there's colon and rectal cancer, and it typically appears in people 50 years of age or older. There's certain types like these ones, the colon and rectal cancer, and if you're men, prostate cancer. And there are certain types of tests where it almost becomes like part of your regular procedure for your checkup with your doctor to check them when you get to a certain age. Because like I said, earlier you catch it, the more likely you are to find out about it and get these scans. That's one of the most successful things about breast cancer. It's a horrible thing, breast cancer, and impacts a lot of people. But you've heard of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And one of the reasons you've heard about it is because they've done a very successful job at making it like a whole thing. They have a whole month about it, right? And they've shown that by people being more aware of it, they're more likely to go and get themselves checked out. Typically, there's like a lump that would develop, and that would be that tumor we were referring to around the breast area. And then if people feel that, and then they feel like, that's strange, what is that about? You go and get it checked out, and then it's very likely that you can stop the spread of it earlier on. But as it gets worse and worse and worse, there's different stages of cancer. If you find it in stage 1 or 2, your chances of survival are much higher than if you find it at stages 3 or 4 and beyond. So other types of long-term diseases: diabetes, allergies, asthma, and arthritis. So diabetes is a disease, and it results from your body's inability to regulate your own blood sugar. Now, there's type 1 diabetes, which is called juvenile onset. It's a kid onset. It can be treated with insulin, strict diet management, and regular physical activity. So you do have to manage it. But this is something that you're generally, you're almost kind of born with it, or you develop it as a kid. And this is mostly genes. There's nothing like you did to it. Whereas type 2 diabetes is adult onset. And that one, some people have gotten adult onset diabetes and then it went away because they changed their diet drastically. So from a lifetime of poor diet, you can develop type 2 diabetes. It was called adult onset because for so long, you had to basically have a poor diet throughout your entire life to develop it. But with the obesity epidemic in the United States, some kids are starting to develop adult onset diabetes while they're still a kid because that's how long they've been severely obese by having really bad diet. So related long-term problems may include vision loss, kidney failure, impaired nerve function. People can die or lose limbs if they don't keep track of their diabetes and make sure they have the right insulin levels that they inject in. So some risk factors for type 2 diabetes, you'd be a family history of it. The older you get, the more likely you are to get it. If you are a physically inactive lifestyle, which could lead to obesity, which could lead to high blood pressure and high cholesterol, all of these things are risk factors for diabetes. Now, allergies is interesting. So when your body has a overreactive response to something. That's what really allergies are. So some people suffer from seasonal allergies, which is overreacting. Basically, your body's immune system is like, what is this foreign invader inside of me? And it's like, it's just tree pollen that's out there. It's really not bad for you, but it could specifically be bad for you if your body develops allergies. From what I've heard, anyone can develop allergies at any age. There's kind of no treatment or cure for this at this point. There are some kind of radical studies out there that show that if you expose yourself to some of these things earlier on, you might develop a resistance to them. But then again, if you're severely allergic to them, you wouldn't want to do that because that could also be really bad for you, potentially lethal or killing you as well. So it's a little bit unclear, but you do need to be aware of people's allergies. You need to respect them because we don't want any unnecessary deaths or close calls, obviously from something that can be avoided. So yeah, these are all some common examples of allergies there. And then the last one we're going to talk about here is asthma. Asthma is a chronic disease of the respiratory system in which the air passages constrict or they kind of close up. And your environment, and so you can be more likely to get asthma just from the genes from your parents. But again, if you're in an area where there's poor air pollution, or bad air pollution, I should say, you can increase your chance of asthma. There are certain places where there's a lot of air pollution and a lot more cases of asthma increase because of that. Asthma, as far as we know, cannot be cured, but with medications and inhalers, you can definitely reduce the amount of attacks. And you can also, if you're having an asthma attack, you can basically calm it down by having that asthma, which helps immediately open up the capillaries and the openings inside of your lungs to be able to take in more oxygen. And those are your non-communicable diseases.